How did you know about it?
Really?
Help me not to take the pen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin this evening's board meeting. The board meeting of August 11th, 2015 is now called to order. The time is 6:01 p.m. At this time, we request that all electronic devices be turned off or put in the silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from using flash photography except during the special presentations portion of the meeting. We would like to take this opportunity to remind members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student reaches his or her highest personal potential and the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This evening's agenda includes the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, public comment, consent action items, which include 5 items under Executive Services, 2 items under Business and Finance, 9 items under Operations, 3 items under Teaching and Learning, 3 superintendent's recommendations, 2 attorneys' recommendations, which are good cause. Mr. Martin, please provide an explanation for these items.
The first item is the recommendation to direct the school board attorney to coordinate an investigation with respect to Dr. Graham's involvement in the investigation of allegations of testing violations at Dunbar Community School. The board gave direction to bring this recommendation at its workshop 2 weeks ago, and with the time it took to coordinate that, I was not able to get this in by the deadline, assuming the board would want to act on this promptly. I'm bringing it this evening. The second recommendation is with respect to establishment of measurable performance goals pursuant to the superintendent's contract. The deadline for doing so is August 15th, so this is the last board meeting at which the board could take that action required by contract.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. As presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add these items to the agenda. There is 1 item for public hearing, 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier, seconded by Ms. LaRiviere. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Mrs. Dozier will deliver the invocation, after which Ms. LaRiviere will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Please bow your heads. Dear God, we thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for all of the families that are represented here this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to gather here this evening for this school board meeting and also just prior to the opening of our schools. God, I would ask that you keep safe all of our teachers as they are ready to approach the classrooms, and also all of our administrators as they are ready to open the doors and greet all of the students. And certainly, please keep in your safe hands all of the children and all of the parents as they will be traveling the roads, and let our roads be safe with all of the buses that will be there. This evening, please guide us, parents, students, members of the public, board members, and the superintendent as we speak this evening. Please let each of us, with our presentations and our comments, be respectful of one another and ensure that our suggestions will benefit our students and also our community. We ask that you guide the superintendent as she brings forth her recommendations this evening. Please guide us as a board as we deliberate, and give us the wisdom to make the right decisions concerning each of the recommendations that are brought to this table this evening. Let them be to the benefit of all of our students in this district. We pray that this meeting will be successful, productive, and blessed. For this, we give you the glory for all that we accomplish during this meeting. Amen.
Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Mr. Martin, please address the agenda item of public comment.
School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board considering any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you submitted a card to me before the meeting began, you'll be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the school board this evening, the school board chair, Ms. Morgan, will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning public comment are posted at the back of the room. The school board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the conclusion of public comment time, the school board chair may address concerns raised by speakers or may assign responsibility to the superintendent to do so. Speakers and the public attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Those who fail to do so may be required to leave the meeting after a warning from the chair. Disruptive attacks on individuals are prohibited. Ms. Morgan, I have 7 cards this evening.
Is there anyone on the right side of the auditorium who wishes to address the board and did not complete a card? You state.
Chris Quackenbush, Bob Belinda.
Aye, yeah.
Harp. Solano.
Okay, anybody on the left side of the auditorium? Would you please state your name? Oh, I'm sorry, second row. Karen? Oh, Kiara Perez? Did I miss anybody? Before we start this evening's public comment, I'm also going to make a statement. Starting off the school year, I'd like to welcome our guests, those who are present and watching on television or online. As a reminder, our meetings are broadcast on Comcast Channel 99 and the district YouTube channel, which can be accessed from our homepage. This is a business meeting of the board. We appreciate those who have taken time out to attend this meeting so we have a process for you to provide public comment on the agenda. Viewers and individuals in attendance should understand, however, that public comment is based on individual opinions, and public comment should not necessarily be construed as fact pertaining to the operation of the district. I would like to ask that in the future, members of the public who wish to address the board to please fill out the blue card. It's a courtesy to our parliamentarian. It helps us know the name and the count of the people who are here to talk. I would also like to say that we as a board respect the First Amendment rights of those who address us during public comment. We listen respectfully and attentively to you when you address us. We do not believe, however, that belittling or berating the superintendent, the board attorney, or board members at board meetings, by email, or in face-to-face conversation contributes to a quality discussion about opportunities to learn and grow as a district. Any Lee County School District student who attended our meetings since May of last year could reasonably ask, hasn't the tenor of some school board discourse risen to the level of harassment and bullying? We have been ridiculed, subjected to abusive speech, threats, and deceit in an effort to influence the agenda and vote. You know a bully when you see one because they shout about their rights while denying yours. You know a bully when you hear them because they demand honor and respect while never once showing it to others. I am taking the position of extending the same courtesy to our speakers as is extended to us by the speakers. I am sure my colleagues will address these comments further as part of their board member comments at the conclusion of this meeting. With that said, we will begin the process of public comment for this meeting. Mr. Martin, would you please call the first speaker?
First speaker is Ms. Carolyn Boland.
Hello.
The start of a new school year, as fresh and as sharp as a brand new box of Crayola crayons, if we all recall that excitement. And the word I'm using is excitement. I've heard the term while waiting in long lines to take advantage of the school tax holiday. I talked to folks sitting around me and while we're waiting in line, and the word that comes out is excitement. From that parent of the new kindergartner to someone starting high school. I'm excited, and do you remember the excitement? The hope and the promise of a new beginning, a fresh start for parents, teachers, administrators, but most of all, the students, our kids. They say in sports that you're only as good as your competition. So to get better, you need to play up. Blaming, accusing, belittling, fighting, especially when combined with no results, is playing down. Playing down as opposed to playing up, which requires showing your skills, your expertise, your experience, and to why you've earned your spot on the big field. I'm the proud parent of 3 Lee County school students. 3 students, despite the mayhem, the chaos, the feuding, and the flat-out substandard behavior of educated, well-paid adults, have excelled. How? By being taught, mentored, and coached by many within the school district who have given so much for really so little. You may remember my daughter, Cam Boland. I wanted to update you on how she has spent the summer. She has toured colleges and universities, top level. She's played competitive travel basketball, babysat, dog sat, had fun, and she even attended a nationally renowned and respected week-long leadership conference and government conference called Girls State. Established in 1937, high school juniors are nominated to participate by the American Legion. There's also a division called Boys State, and notable attendees have included astronaut Neil Armstrong, President Bill Clinton, presidential nominee Chris Christie, Jane Pauley, basketball great Michael Jordan, and even one of my personal heroes, John Bon Jovi. Despite one's political preference, I think we'd agree that's pretty good company. So, despite Vice Chair Toiber's very public, dire prediction of her future, which included your words, not mine, damage she has bestowed, and the shame and embarrassment she has brought to Lee County, despite your public concern over my parenting and future opportunities, she emerged from a group of 300 nominated students throughout the state of Florida as governor of Girls State, the top elected position. That's playing up. So I bring this up to you as I began my moment to address you, which is excitement, hope, and a new beginning. My daughter Cam is only one of nearly 90,000 students, all who are deserving of everything we have. And believe me, the students of this school district can play up. Let's give them the field and the chance, and we will all reap the benefits. We
Thank you,
owe
Ms.
them
Bowman.
this,
Your
as
time's
this is
up,
our
ma'am.
future. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. W.L. Gaines.
Good evening. I've had the opportunity to live here in Lee County for the past 3 years, and I've observed the superintendent monitor and direct the school district since she's been here. And but I feel there's a few pertinent questions that you as the board need to answer before you make this decision about what to do or how to go about it. First one is, why did the allegations or concerns not go to the then principal at Dunbar Community School instead of him finding out on April the 14th, 2015, after the fact? As your board policy 5.29 dictates one must do in this situation. Did the person receiving the allegation at the district or the person receiving the information from the school personnel inform the person or persons? Did you report this concern to the principal as policy 5.29 dictates? After receiving the correspondence from Ms. Dozier on July the 2nd, 2015, directed to the superintendent, subject GED testing at Dunbar Community School, it clearly reflects the superintendent responded to all of your questions accurately And my question now is, why do we as taxpayers have to pay in excess of $10,000 for additional report when there's already been a summary of findings on this subject? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Next,
What happened to the assistant principal who was in charge of the testing? Thank you.
next speaker is Ms. Jamie Michael.
I'm short. Good evening. I'm Jamie Michael. I'm president of Support Personnel Association of Lee County. And I'm talking about, because it may come up this evening, about BMG, a payday loan company. Several years ago, Ms. Dosher was gracious enough to invite Talc and Spalk to meet with a company that she wanted to introduce to the Lee County School District. Talc and Spalk presidents and the FEA directors met with Ms. Dozier and the BMG representatives who provided their company information. They were requesting to come into the district to offer employees payday loans at 19% with paycheck deductions. After careful consideration by myself, including research on the internet and talking with my executive board and stewards, Spalk felt 19% was a predatory rate. Some said loan shark rates, especially since the most they can earn in their savings account is 2%. So Spalk declined Ms. Dozier's offer to consider this company. Now, BMG is again trying to get a payroll slot, but I've heard now it's 22%, then 23%, now 24%. Guess our folks are worth charging 5% more. This is worse than a final best offer when you do an RFP that it goes up. That's supposed to be best final offer, it goes down. Why was this not put out to an RFP? Why does this violate board policy 5.15, which says in order to get a payroll slot, you need 3,000 signatures? We have 12,000 employees, 25% is 3,000. Why would someone want to pay $24 of every 100 to borrow money? How about a 24% pay increase for my para who makes $15,000 a year, if that, beginning? That would be $18,600 a livable wage. If we have 3,000 employees in this district that need payday loans, we need a significant increase in salary. Spalk has always felt this board policy is fair. We have tried to get a payroll slot for one of our companies because we could get a 5% discount on our car insurance, house insurance, etc. If the board wishes to violate their own board policy, then it would be another off-the-cuff decision. If you change the board policy, I would expect it to be fair to the unions and any other company that wishes to have a payroll spot. And Spalk, contrary to Facebook, Spalk did not stop BMG. Spalk pointed out in an email to the board members and at the bargaining table, board policy 5.15. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. George Fox.
Thank you, Board, and am I on? And Pam, glad to see you're feeling better and back. Would like to address the good cause on the investigation of the investigation. I attended the workshop when this decision was made to bring it to the action meeting, and Ms. Dozier, in her comments, correctly said that the situation at that school had long known to have been a difficult situation. And I think that's really what this is. We have a superintendent who inherited a difficult situation, and I think handled it perfectly. People who allegedly, I'll say, did these acts are gone. And the one who had been a long-term, I guess, principal, he resigned. So he has no recourse whatsoever. He left the district. And you have an investigation of the investigation, I think maybe you might open the door back up for someone to come back and sue the district over some silly technicality that'll cost hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it is to, to fight off. what's really important is what happens after he left and who comes in and the process of getting the school back on track. So I would very much recommend this district, this board, does not proceed with an investigation of an investigation, because it doesn't make any logical sense. If the superintendent had something to hide or was not seeking the truth, she wouldn't have sent an investigator over there or done it the way she did it. She just did it honestly. She sent the person over there, did the job. When someone shows up for an investigation, people are going to cover their you-know-what. And you as a board have to evaluate whether what you read in that report is reliable, is it credible? And base your decision on what you think is best for the school district, absolutely. But when someone is being, investigated, maybe they might just say things that, they may only have not necessarily facts, it's just their opinion. So you have to weigh that tonight when you make this decision. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mr. Marvin Getz.
Board members, superintendent. I'm representing the substitute teachers, the Lee County Association of Professional Substitute Teachers. And this is not my first board meeting I've attended. I've been in attendance since Ray Pothorf was the superintendent. So I go back a long ways. In each board that I've dealt with over these years, I've always been told there is no money or very little money when it comes to the substitute teachers. But when we have emergencies, such as this investigation of the superintendent, somehow we find the extra money. I should have been an attorney like Mr. Gonzalez and make $200 an hour. It would have been an improvement. But my question is, why do we always find the money? Somehow, when emergency, we find the money for this. And over all the years, even though I've been told there isn't any, somehow we find it. And it costs us. But perhaps this year will be a little different. We've had no raises since I was going to say 1885, but I'm not that old. Since 1985, and I'm hoping this year will be different. We had that additional money that came in that we hadn't counted on and wasn't budgeted. So perhaps we'll find a good cause for the substitute teachers. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ms. Sierra Susko.
Hello. In the past, I have spoken as myself, Sierra Susko. I've also spoken as Dagny Taggart, John Galt, and for the families and friends of those who died during 9/11. I have been told that the Atlas Shrugged reference was too obscure. So tonight I will dumb things down a bit. There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of the imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone. This story takes place in a room in which sits 5 board members, a superintendent, a lawyer, and an empty chair. But the chair is not really empty. The occupant is merely overlooked, forgotten, and ignored. You have entered the school board. Here, board members vote to end standardized testing, but then call an emergency meeting when almost nobody can come to repeal their vote. Further, they determine and make known that EOCs will not count against a student, but then after the test, they again recant. This is where the superintendent does what she can to keep the testing in district schools, for which she receives bonuses, where the lawyer kowtows to the superintendent, always going with the establishment, while failing to give clear explanations to his true employers, the board, and where the board chairperson stops meaningful comments and cares not what the public has to offer, while other board members are looking at the superintendent and her actions through rose-colored glasses. Here, the public speaks on topics of import, but is told to be quiet when they say what the board does not wish to hear. Here, the pledge is recited erroneously, and the time and opinion of many people disrespected. Still, we forget the perceived empty chair, where the occupant is ignored, forgotten, and overlooked. Who does sit there? Who really sits there is the future, the student, who the board, superintendent, and lawyer regularly forget. The future is not to be taken lightly. Move the student to the middle and maintain the focus where it belongs. Place the lawyer and superintendent on opposite sides of the dais. Board members, be more responsive to the people who elected you. Voters in Lee County, elect new board members who understand the Constitution. Change the channel. Let's leave the twilight zone. Thank you for watching. I will return next season after my night classes at FSW has been completed. Thank you, and good night.
Next speaker is Mr. Joe Ryder.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Graham and Mr. Martin. Thank you. I'll try and be brief. I'm here to talk about two things. I'm Vice Chairman of the Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, and that deals not only with students but with employees. And I find that the accusations and some of the things that are being talked about our superintendent, Dr. Graham, are appalling to me. And some of the allegations that I'm reading here from Ms. Dozier and some of the responses, I don't think add up. But to that situation, if I've been to the Dunbar School many times. I think it's a wonderful place, and I had a chance to send a student there to get some help and got the help, and this student actually graduated from the virtual school with help of the Dunbar School, Dunbar Community School, and got a high school diploma. Not a GED, but a high school diploma. And that's a big thing. And that was through the help of both the virtual school and through Charles and his people at the Dunbar Community School. Now, the idea of spending $10,000 or approximately $10,000 or any money on another investigation, when if I'm looking here and I have the memo from Dr. Graham to the board and answering the questions that Ms. Dozier has put out, I find it, I don't know what else we have to investigate. We're talking about one test, one student. The proctor, who was the person that fouled the test, was disciplined. I understand contract was not renewed. So we're talking about one GED test, one student, one proctor. $10,000? Like the gentleman over here said, I think that's a bit much when we're talking about things that we know we need here. The substitute teacher gentleman was talking about things that we need here. So I think that this is a lot about nothing. And I, as vice chairman, and I've been invited back next year to the Equity and Diversity Committee, would like to stand up for one of your employees, Dr. Graham, and say that we're on her side and we think she's doing a wonderful job. And I know her personally, but I know her from what she's done also. So thank you all.
Those are all the cards, Ms. Morgan.
Mary Orthodoxou.
I too think $10,000 is ridiculous, considering I called the Department of Education today, and they will investigate for free. The Federal Department of Education. When I hear investigation, I think of an investigator, not an attorney that specializes in employer disputes with employees. That's not an investigator. I looked on his website. I didn't see private investigator licensed in the state of Florida. So how are we spending $10,000 on an attorney to do an investigation? Now, I heard everybody's comments, and obviously they didn't read the 325-page report or the summary report, because that reads like Swiss cheese. I'm talking to people throughout the district, I'm talking to people throughout the state, and some of the comments I'm hearing is just disgusting, the reputation Lee County School Board has and our superintendent. I'm not even going to repeat half of what was told to me over the last few weeks. You know, teachers are going without pay, but administration, as long as they're somebody's friend, they get raises. I called the IRS today. The FOIA requests for 2013, 2014, well, I hate to tell you, you better have the records even though you don't want to produce them, because it's going to be an IRS audit now. We're not playing anymore. This is taxpayer money. This is misappropriation of taxpayer money. The GED scandal, that's federal corruption. So we're looking at 2 felonies here now. You know, it's up to you guys. You're the board. We elected you and put you up there. We expect you to do your job. We've been coming here for over a year, bringing things forward, things that are not correct, misconduct, and it's swept under the carpet constantly. So yeah, we're frustrated. And maybe I come off a little strong, and I apologize for that. But I've had it now. I'm not going to sit here and play games with some local attorney to get $10,000 for the second time now, so it's $20,000 in his pocket of their money, when there's other avenues that can be brought forward. I wouldn't even have said anything had I seen a private investigator, but I see the same attorney again for another $10,000. He's not even a private investigator. He's not a licensed private investigator. So, yeah, I object to that, too. Thanks.
Bob Valenta?
I find it interesting that Dr. Graham's friends have to show up to stick up for her, but clearly, from their comments, they haven't read the report, where there's clear indication, and I think the board, I'm hoping that all 5 board members have in fact read all 325 pages twice. And if you have, especially if you're an attorney and you have, I'm sure that you've seen the state and federal violations of law. If you haven't, go back and read it a 3rd time. Thomas Gonzalez is an inappropriate choice, as he has spent his career defending management in employment law matters. Now, I need to stipulate, I was born and raised into business. I'm in management. I take the side of management. He's not he's an inappropriate investigator to investigate his friends and cronies. And that's the way that it looks to the public. I do agree, however, with spending the $10,000 to have an investigation. He's just not the correct person. We need to have an outside, independent investigation, and nothing shy of that will suffice. Whether you vote to have Mr. Gonzalez investigate this matter or not, it is clear that a federal investigation is warranted, as the state can't be trusted to be impartial, because they too are buddy-buddy and friends with Mrs. Graham. Thank you. I am a truther.
Chris Quackenbush?
Cheating scandals have legal and financial liability to our district and need to be handled by the book. The law requires a report of violations to the DOE within 10 days of the infraction. This was apparently not done by the superintendent, and I thank Ms. Dozier for calling attention to it. The investigation summary shows that this was not the only time and not the only infraction, as was mentioned earlier, but there was a condition of lawlessness existing at the testing center, managed by the principal, Charles Daly. This could cost our district millions if we lose our GED testing capabilities. People need to have confidence in our testing and fairness. Special favors, changing test results, changing the rules, protecting friends are all issues uncovered in the initial investigation summary. And I invite everyone to read it if they haven't. It's only 21 pages. This is not the first report of questionable practices in leadership at Dunbar. School staff reported they were threatened, and this is no laughing matter. The internal investigation report on cheating and impropriety at Dunbar is available to the public. The testimony of 13 witnesses presented in Lee County Schools internal investigation reveals these startling facts. Page 7 and 16, the person tested in the 4-2 incident when the school was closed, Ms. Martin, is the mother of Mr. Daly's granddaughter. Ms. Martin was not currently listed as a student at the time of testing. The school was closed for spring break, and she entered through a side door which should have been locked. She was the only person tested, and no one else was notified of a testing opportunity on that day. The proctor selected to test her for the 5th attempt at the GED was Mr. Anderson, who called Mr. Daly grandfather and reportedly told staff he was protected by Mr. Daly. This is their testimony, not mine. This is direct quotes from the report. Mr. Anderson was the only proctor while 2 others were required. That's a violation. Mr. Anderson sat with Ms. Martin while testing, a violation. Mr. Anderson admitted he used his cell phone during testing, a violation. Mr. Anderson left her alone for part of the testing, a violation. Mr. Daly entered the testing facility, a violation. Ms. Vollinger indicated that Mr. Anderson failed to enter placement scores, that he deleted or changed student test scores. She noted that at one point, approximately 1/3 of all the students in DCS had incorrect records. That is not one incident. I could go on. He threatened to change their evaluations. That's the principal. Now, Superintendent Nancy Graham met with him just days after this. We don't know what transpired in that meeting, but he resigned. At first, it said he was retiring, but that's scratched out, and his resignation is written in with an initial. We'd like to know why no one actually was held responsible in this case. The proctor was given paid administrative leave. He was given vacation and simply not renewed. The principal, Nancy Graham said, was at no time under investigation.
Thank you, Ms. Quackenbush. Your
Thank
time's
you.
up, ma'am.
Mark Castellano.
My name is Mark Castellano. I'm president of the Teachers Association of Lee County, and thank you, Dr. Graham and board members, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I am here to address the payday loan issue that Jamie Michael brought up a few minutes ago. Very simply put, my afternoon was spent dealing with accusations and trying to put straight the claim that I and TALC somehow stopped payday loans from being approved. I wish I had that kind of influence, but I don't. Actually, I don't wish I had that. I don't want to have anything to do with payday loans of any kind. We did not support, nor did we endorse, nor did we defame these loans. The company is of concern, but that is not our place, and we did not approve it. As Jamie pointed out, this was not something that was put through an RFP. My sole expectation in this whole thing is that the board and the school district follow its own policies. Every teacher, every employee is expected to follow and observe those policies and is held accountable to that standard. And so my only concern in this whole thing is that the board followed its own policy in this regard. Policy 5.15 states, in part, payroll deductions reductions shall not be implemented until signed payroll deductions reduction authorization cards are received for at least 25% of all full-time regular employees, which includes staff, secretaries, maintenance, custodial, teachers, bus operators, food service employees, and school board members. The reality is simple. I expect the board to follow that policy. That is where my concern lies. I do not expect that the board will change that policy. I would hope the board will not change that policy, because if the change is to cut out the employee's input, that is disrespectful, and that is not necessary, and that is inappropriate. So I would certainly hope that the board will not cut out the employee input in this regard. So I urge you not to do that. The last thing I want to point out is that, again, much of what I dealt with this afternoon comes from misinformation that is being put out there repeatedly, and then I have to spend my time trying to undo that. I really try to work very hard, and TALC and our unions work very hard to get appropriate and correct information out to our employees. Thank you for the opportunity.
Jacqueline Perez.
My name is Jacqueline Perez. My daughter attended Lexington Middle School in 2013, where she was bullied, physically assaulted, and battered by Geronimo Mulholland, the dean of Barron Collier High School's son. Principal Capriota did not assist in any matter to help my daughter. What she did was she engaged in bullying tactics. They sent a false report over to the district attorney's office with a false confession because the boy had actually confessed. And I had written letters to the board, to the superintendent. I had called, and no one ever responded to any of my cries for help. While this child was not punished because you have a zero tolerance in Lee County, that was totally ignored. We were threatened several times by the principal there, and everyone here knows it, with the exception of the new board members that are here. We took care of all measures to make sure everyone knew about it. She was finally forced out of school because of her medical condition, which is a rare form of angioedema Hay, which is exacerbated under stress, which was written in her files. But something tragic happened where all her files disappeared. When I came in 2014 to get my child's records, I was told by Karen Lepore, who was under direction of Bohatch, that she didn't have any records, and maybe I know where her records were. So I was given no access to my daughter's records. With many attempts made to get my child the justice that she deserved, I had to rely on the Assistant District Attorney, Rebecca McConnell, to call the school, to speak to the SRO there, who were covering up this whole scenario, this whole horrible situation, and finally press charges against this boy, and we won in court. My daughter has a permanent restraining order because of the threats he made and the things he did to her. But it all happened in a Lee County school where she wasn't protected, and not one time did any of you reach out to assist her, to give her any kind of help that she needed, to even give me any information. Her lens in her eyes, in her retina, was knocked loose. He used a spiral notebook to punch her in the face for no reason. His reason being, he liked to see her scared. But only when Lieutenant Musante from Fort Myers Police Department's son was threatened by the same boy did anybody take action, and he was removed into Collier County. So my honor roll student gets shut out, forced from school, bullied by a principal, no help from anyone here at the district, and everyone knows I've been here. On August 26th in 2014, if you want to look at the videos, I was in the parking lot talking to Armstrong, and he told me that everyone knew what happened to my daughter, and they were given strict instructions by Graham to not intervene, that she would personally handle this situation. And this is the way you conduct yourselves. That's why this is a big cover-up with Daley. That's why.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Your time is up, ma'am.
Tara Jenner.
Good evening. A lot of what I'd planned on saying about the investigation and the $10,000 fee that went with it has already been said, so I'm going to limit my comments on that narrowly and then talk about one other thing. First off, I tell my children all the time that don't do what I'm doing. Don't do what I'm doing. Do what I say sometimes, because I don't always act in the way that I really want them to behave. It's terrible to have to say that to your own child, but it does happen periodically that our actions do not address and correspond with what we want our children to do. It goes back to the issue of integrity, because I will usually explain to my children, I didn't act appropriately. I told you to do this. I didn't do the same thing. I acted differently than my words. I'm wrong. Integrity is a word that you regularly have up on the board, and you regularly talk about integrity. when I look at the situation with Mr. Daly, I think of an iceberg, and I think of how much is visible versus how much is underneath the surface. If it were only a single incident, which it was not, having read the report, I would say that, is there not something under the surface that we need to just confirm? I'm an attorney, but I'm not licensed in the state of Florida, and I did healthcare law. This is not my area of expertise. But I would hazard a guess that doing an internal investigation, even with someone outside the area, is not necessarily the best way to handle things, because it turns around and it gives the impression that there is a cover-up, whether that's intended or not. Again, our actions speak louder than our words sometimes, so I encourage you to consider that. On a side note, as many of you know, I'm a homeschooler, and I'm getting ready to fill out my application for the end-of-year evaluation for my students. And I've spent the last 3 weeks looking on the website, calling the school district office, trying to find out who in blue blazes is in charge of homeschooling. And I've gotten about 10 different names. Finally today, I was able to speak with Al Schilling. And he gave me some information, but it's not exactly clear who's doing what to whom and who's on first, and it's a little bit convoluted. We've got a whole bunch of new people coming into the school system, into this area, that are brand new homeschoolers. They're kindergartners, first graders that need to sign up. They want to sign up for home education. They don't know who to talk to. And now it's housed under the Leave Virtual School. And it goes back to that issue of integrity. The implication is for new homeschoolers that come in that there might be a suggestion just by the location of the home education office that you need to go through Leave Virtual School, which gives FTE money to the county. And it might imply that there is a need to go that route. I have a real problem with that, and I would like to ask the board to consider directing Nancy Graham and whoever.
Thank you, Ms. Jenny. Your time's up, ma'am.
Gabrielle Perez.
I've been a student at Lee County all my life. I recently was bullied not only by another student that I went to school with, but by Principal Capriota, Deputy Waits, Assistant Principal Mr. Peters, and one of the guidance counselors, Mrs. Clapper. I attended Lexington Middle. I was battered physically by another student. The last incident from the bully was him hitting me in my eye with the spiral end of a notebook.
Excuse me, there's no comments, please. Okay, that's a warning. This is a warning. You repeat that, and you will be escorted from the room. I'm sure all of the board members share my regret that she was unable to continue. Kevin Riegel.
I'm going to need a minute. Sorry.
Time has begun, Mr. Riegel.
I'm sorry, can I have a second?
Time has begun, Mr. Riegel. Time
I'm
has
catching
begun.
my throat because of what just happened. Are you that insensitive, sir? Are you that insensitive? Can you please
Mr.
restart?
Riegel, you're obviously prepared to start talking, so please start.
Ladies and gentlemen, obviously the fact that some of you don't care about your comments is disturbing. What we just witnessed, first of all, I'm sorry for what happened to your daughter. Unbelievable, Mr. Martin. Unbelievable. You know, this goes back to our meetings with the superintendent, and this has nothing to do with this case, but when we bring up things that happen with principals and people, I mean, the fact that one of them stole my money to pay off his mistress, that alone, and he's an administrator, that's nothing compared to this situation. Nothing. When we meet with Nancy Graham, and she tells us she keep these people in charge because they're good at their job, That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Look what you are doing to these kids. That is horrible. For that, you should resign, ma'am. To bring these type of people and keep them in power is absolutely, absolutely horrible. It really is. That's number one. I was going to talk about the investigation and a lot of other things, but I'd like to harp on this for a minute. Our children are our number one priority. When you defend your friends who are administrators, when they do this kind of behavior and you cover it up, you have only yourself to blame. I really do, I don't know what to say. Again, I am so sorry. I'm sure the board members up here do not condone this kind of behavior. When you speak, yes, Mr. Armstrong and others did say that Mrs. Graham would handle it. Obviously, she didn't. That's not the first, the second, the third, or the 10th time this has happened. How many times have we come up and you've heard this? I can't do anything. I'm not an elected board member. You are. Are you going to do something? Thank you.
Melissa Giovanelli.
I've been here numerous times. Subcommunication is a huge problem. It's always a huge problem. I've said it. I came here because I was against the FSA testing or EOC. I don't even know. I guess they're one and the same. I didn't even know. I've learned so much. And what I've really found out is the corruption. I can't stand the corruption. And is it that important? When you're not doing your job, just give up. Just throw in the towel and say, there's got to be somebody better that can do it. Where the Perez family is not being bullied by my other platform that I've been saying. It's happening in every school. It's not just Lehigh Senior High. These principals are bullying not just their staff. They're bullying the kids. They're scared to death, and the staff is so scared to death, they won't come and tell. They won't come and tell that Mr. Daly called them constantly, wanting to know what they know about the GED testing, the scandal where she actually got to go back and retake the test. If somebody read the 21-page report, I've got it right here if you'd like to see it. 21 pages tells where she got to go back, and Dr. Pruitt let her go back and take the test again, which she failed. She passed the one that she cheated on, but she failed the one 2 weeks later or whatever it was later. Is that discrimination because she gets to take the test numerous times and continue failing? I think it is. That's what's sad. How many other people that's got to take the GED test 5 or 6 times and fail it, come in the back door and take it? I don't even understand how that happens, because I know there's people that need to pass the GED test, and I think they need to have opportunity, but not when at the time. By the way, everybody out there, you paid for her test 5 times. She didn't pay for it one time. She got to take it again for free. So there's something wrong with this. It's broken. And when it's broken, how do you fix it? The only people that can fix it are sitting right there and choose to overlook and thinks that everything is fine. It's not fine. I don't even know how to say this. It's not fine. And Mr. Fox, you want to talk about Dr. Browder? Well, I have an older daughter that went to school when Dr. Browder was the principal, and he was an excellent principal. And I'll tell you what, he ran a tight ship when he was a superintendent. He may not have been perfect. Well, none of us are perfect. None of us are, because I know I'm not the Lord Jesus Christ. And he was the only one that walked on this earth that was ever perfect. So I get that, and I believe in forgiveness, and I believe that we have the opportunity to make things right. And we all can be forgiven, no matter what. And I mean that.
Kiara Perez.
Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of my sister, Gabriela Perez. I hand-delivered a bullying complaint directly to the superintendent here and the board members in December of 2014. The bullying incident which culminated to the physical battery of my sister happened in December of 2014. We did not, after countless times of talking to Principal Capriota, and she did not seem to want to help with my sister and her incident, We thought we would come to the school board because they should be the ones putting their employees in check. They should be protecting the children here. We didn't receive any courtesy that was explained to us in the beginning of the meeting as expressed to us. No one ever called or intervened to protect her, especially when she was persecuted and mistreated by the principal and the employees there at Lexington Middle School. I guess my biggest concern is, when did the employees here at the district come before students, and when did they get protected over students, when that should be the main focus of the Lee County Schools, as the students are the future and who we're trying to protect, not the employees. Thank you.
Kathleen Chercia.
Good evening. It seems like our district has huge problems. I don't even know where to start. First of all, I'm going to say I'm really sorry. No student should be bullied ever. And I know Mrs. Fisher and a lot of board members have worked so hard for that. But if you took it to someone here, up there, and they didn't respond, that's horrible. Now, I'm going to speak about the last 2 school board meetings I've come to. With public comments, they have been mean-spirited, they have been rude, they have been personal attacks made on people up there, or a school board attorney. What happened to speaking, making your point, and being polite? I mean, we do have policies, which I've heard from other people here who are saying some of these policies are not being utilized, and I'd like to know why not. Your job is to make school board policy. Why aren't we using them? So I sent an email to everyone up there. I copied Mr. Martin with regard to my issues. There was 3 questions in my email. Why are we allowing this to happen? Why didn't someone stop these comments? Because do we pick and choose who we're going to do this for? This is insane. We need to get our act together. I am tired of hearing our school board is dysfunctional. I'm tired of hearing all kinds of anger, all kinds of crazy. This is enough. We got to do something. We got to work together. We have to work together. This is so insane. We have a school board member that won't talk to our superintendent unless it's an email. That can't be true. I hope that's not true. It was in the news press, but you never know with that, so who knows if it's true. But if it is, we need to work together, everyone up there and the public, everyone. Just like everybody said, the students are our priority. We have a new school year coming. Oh my God, we have all these problems. You guys had a workshop yesterday. I'd like to hear, did anything happen? Was it helpful? I mean, you go to school and lots of times you have to sit in a group with people you can't stand. But guess what? You have to, because the teacher said so. The teacher says, hey, all of you said, well, that's not my best friend. I don't want to sit there. I can't stand that person. They don't look good, or whatever the reason is, okay? You may not like each other. I may not like you. You may not like me. Who cares? The point is, we all have to work as a team, and we have to work together. But getting back to my email, I did ask Mrs. Morgan to respond to that. I had 3 questions. Why didn't Mr. Martin, our school board attorney, or you stop these comments? Because personal attacks are not allowed, okay, according to your policy. And the next thing was, if Dr. Graham is not improving and not doing her job, why is she still here? And I gave you 2 opportunities to address it as the school board chair. And what I got back from you was, thank you for your comments and your observations. So if you dismiss it like that, and we dismiss somebody's child getting bullied,
Thank you, Ms.
what kind of
Chercia.
crazy is that?
On behalf of the board, I'm just going to ask Dr. Graham to put together a report on the incident referred to by the Perez family. Okay. And other board members may choose to address the rest of the comments in board member comment. Next is approval of action items in the agenda under consent. Board members, are there agenda items you wish to pull for discussion under the unfinished business tabled items portion of the agenda? Mrs. Fisher.
I have no pulls this evening.
Mrs. Dozier. I have none. Mr. Teuber.
I have one, 4E1.
Ms. LaRiviere.
I have none.
What page is that on?
4E1, I don't know. Would you ask Mr. Teuber, what 4E1 is on what page?
4E1 is on page 82. It's the high school graduation schedule.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items with the exception of item 4E1?
So moved.
Mrs. Dozier?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fisher. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Would you please, Dr. Graham, are there any new appointees?
Yes, I didn't know you wanted to wait until we finished, or.
Okay, well, it says here.
Christopher Burr. Is Christopher new assistant principal at Oakhammock Middle? McBride going from Tanglewood Elementary teacher to Tanglewood Elementary assistant principal. Allison Deming, Lehigh Senior High teacher to South Fort Myers High assistant principal. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one pool to address. Is there a motion for the pooled item?
You need a recommendation for
Oh, I'm sorry, what's the, yeah.
And board approval of the proposed high school graduation schedule for the 2015-16 school year. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Teuber, seconded by Mrs. Dozier. Discussion. Mr. Teuber.
Yes, board members, I gave you a printout, and that's the information as far as the size of the graduating class. There's two sets. I sorted them two different ways. The first one is the 14-15 year. The second one is the 15-16 year. And basically, the reason why I did that is we now have 3 venues, small, middle, and large. And I just wanted to make sure and be cognizant and give the board, I don't have a problem with supporting this, but I would just like us to take a look at it and give the superintendent directions that we actually, there's a huge disparity as far as the size of capacity in these facilities. And I believe that it's only in due fairness that we take the top largest schools and put them in Germain Arena because the capacity is much larger for the families to be able to accommodate. You know, the goal is to get as many people in the families that are attending these graduations as possible. And so I think it's only fair and incumbent on the board to give the direction to the superintendent that we should do it by size and not by preference of which schools, you know, put in a bid to say, you know, pick a venue. We really need to be pragmatic and fair about it, and I think the best way to do it is the size and take the largest schools in Germain, the second set in Alico, and then the remainder in Harborside. So that's just my only comments, but that's all I had.
Other comments? Mrs. Dozier?
Well, I would ask the superintendent, because this is something, and I appreciate this, you know, we want to do things according to data-made decisions, and thank you for bringing this, because I had never really thought about it that way. I just simply knew that all of the different high schools kind of put in a bid, you know, I'd like to be at this school because, and I mean, for instance, I noticed that we are not going to the Civic Center this year, which I understand there were a lot of problems last year, and I can certainly understand why we're choosing not to go back to that facility this year, but I would also look to see if they have rectified the problems that we had last year. But I did attend one graduation there, and it seemed that, you know, I have not heard from any of the parents, and everything seemed to work well during that graduation. And I know that there are 2 high schools that I'm thinking of that always like going to that location because they could invite so many students. And if we are not looking at the size of the facility because of the size of the graduating class, that's another factor that should be considered as we are making decisions. And while we're talking about this, I'm also going to bring up the fact that we've got 5 board members here. 5 board members have schools that are in their districts. And, you know, last year quietly I brought up the fact that, you know, I had an overlap in my schools. In fact, for the last 2 years, I've had an overlap in my schools, and I asked you about it, and you said that it wouldn't happen again. Well, it happened again this year, and I brought it to your attention immediately. In fact, it was on the last agenda, and you pulled that item because I had 2 schools that were graduating at the same time, and there's no way that I can split myself in half. And it's very important to me to be at the schools in my district. you know, the bad thing about doing it the way we do it is, you know, I can remember the days when we graduated over a period of 2 to 3 weeks, and we would attend anywhere from 7, 8 graduations, you know, but cost was a factor, and we have probably saved, just for the public's consumption, we have probably saved several $1,000,000 by going to weekends and not doing this. And I will say that that was my idea to do this, and it wasn't real. You can remember, Mr. Toiber, you were here. It was not very favored by the people. There was a big pushback because, you know, who's going to have to graduate at 10 a.m. in the morning? Who wants to graduate at 10 a.m. in the morning? But, you know, we did it. You know, large groups do it all across the country. It worked. And here we are today, and now we are not looking at the size of the venue with the size of the graduating class. So I would certainly support Mr. Toiber, and I would ask that we not only look at the board members and make sure that their graduation is at a certain time, because we'll travel from one side of the county to the other, and that's what I'm doing, but also make sure that the largest venues are for the largest schools.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Toiber?
And just to that point, if you look, no matter how you, whether you're looking at this latest graduation we have or the projected for the next year, or we look at the 3-year average, Ida Baker is bigger than Island Coast no matter how you slice it. And yet Island Coast is in the bigger venue than Ida Baker. And I would just be something we might want to consider, that we actually swap those two, Ida Baker and Island Coast, and actually put the bigger school, which is Ida Baker, in Germain, and that'd be my only change for this particular year. But I think that just going forward, I think that's fair, and especially it's going to get more propagated when we have 7 members. It's going to be 5 will be districts, and you have, you know, we talk about the territorial issues. You know, there has to be. I'm just telling you, it's just going to be. There's going to be. You know, there's some people will prefer one venue over the other, and there'll be pressure from the community. And if we have a systemized structure that's fair and equitable to everybody, we don't get into those type of discussions. So,
Ms. LaRiviere?
I just have a question, and I don't know if is it appropriate to ask it of the superintendent at this time. Do the schools themselves put in a bid for the location they would like to go to?
No, there has been a past practice that there's a rotation of sorts because the perception was some venues are nicer than the others. I think with the 3 we're using now, that's probably not the case. The only real difference is the size. And I think the only ones, as I've looked at this, the only one that is bigger is the one Mr. Toiber talked about, was Ida Baker. And because if you look at, once you get past, if you look at the Fort Myers, Riverdale, Ida Baker, that top group after that, they're pretty close in size. So if it's the desire of the board to switch those, I can certainly make that happen. If you don't want to approve the dates tonight, and I mean, if you want to approve it knowing that I'll make that change, you can. If you want me to pull it and bring it back with that correction, I can do that. The only reason this is here this early is because people want to know when they're graduating.
Other comments?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other question I would have would be the possibility of if there's a way that Estero High could switch with another one, because it's the next in rank following.
How about if I just pull this? And then
Perfect.
I will send it to you all in advance, as I did when I sent it to you, to ask if just to be sure there was no duplication once Ms. Dozier made her request. I'll just pull it and have to bring it back, and I will ask Dr. Bohatch to go through it. I don't want to start manipulating the schedule here at the table.
Since there is a motion on the floor to adopt the superintendent's recommendation, that would have to be withdrawn before the recommendation can be withdrawn. I believe it was made by Mr. Toiber.
I'll withdraw the recommendation on the request of Dr. Graham.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's recommendations.
I recommend board approval. Oh, no, that's consent, sorry. I recommend board approval of the designated school bus routes as presented for the 2015-16 school year and authorization for the superintendent to make any necessary adjustments in bus routes throughout the school year as required.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. LaRiviere, second by Ms. Dozier. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
I recommend board approval to renew bid number N11699-4SM for exhaust fans replace and repair district-wide awarded to County Cooling and Heating, Inc. for the final renewal period of October 25, 2015 through October 24, 2016 at the estimated annual expenditure of $500,000 pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher, seconded by Mrs. Dozier. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
I recommend board approval to renew RFP R127066JM for structured cabling and telephone system installation and support awarded to Telecommunications Connections of Florida, Inc. for the first renewal period of September 11, 2015 through September 10, 2016 at the estimated annual expenditure of $1 million pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all documents.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I think that was Mrs. Fisher and Mrs. Dozier. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Board Attorney recommendations.
Yes, Ms. Morgan. Board members, the first recommendation this evening is for the school board to direct the school board attorney to coordinate an investigation of the conduct of Superintendent Dr. Nancy J. Graham in the investigation of allegations of testing violations at Dunbar Community School to be performed by Attorney Thomas Gonzalez at an estimated total cost of $10,000. The hourly rate for Mr. Gonzalez's services is $175, and the estimated time frame needed to complete the investigation would be 45 days.
Board members, you've heard the attorney's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Dozier. Discussion. Ms. LaRiviere.
I have a question to ask of Mr. Martin. It is my understanding that attorneys in this situation will hire out an investigator to do the investigation, and then they will process from there. Will that be the case here?
No, Mr. Gonzalez would perform the investigation.
Does
He
the
would perform all of the
investigation himself?
services, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Mrs. Dozier.
Well, I'm going to address the comments about Mr. Gonzalez. I don't have a personal relationship with the man. I simply know him because he has worked for the district once before. And I will say that he worked with the district and we were very successful. And we had a situation where we had to, there was someone that was suing us for something that, an action the board had taken, and overwhelmingly the board won as a result of Mr. Gonzalez's actions. He is a very competent attorney. He is very competent in this field. In fact, I was the board chair at the time, and I watched him litigate the entire thing. And I know that, I know he knows what he's doing, and I know that he will be able to, I will say that he knows how to do a forensic investigation. So, and I know that Mr. Martin going to him probably was because he is very respected in the state. And there was also some conversation about we always find money. Well, we have budgeted legal fees for just things like this that come up. So it's not that we found money, and that's how we do business. There's a budget line for that, and I do know that there's money in that budget line right now for this expenditure. There's been a lot of talk tonight about the report itself, 325 pages. In fact, I have mine back there in my office, and I've probably got 100 and something of. I'm just going to show you these little bitty tabs on it where I've highlighted it and I've tabbed it and highlighted it and tabbed it. I've read it, I've reread it, and I've read it again. And I was very concerned when I read the 21 pages. And I became more concerned when I read the 325 pages. The summary was not as bad as the actual report itself. I will be supporting this recommendation this evening because testing violations are very serious. Testing violations put the district in a situation to where we can actually lose our right to test, which could literally cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Somebody said millions. It could go that high depending on what happens. So it's always difficult when you have to make a decision like this, but I think the best thing to do is for us to have an investigation, a clean investigation, and we'll see what happens as a result of this, and then depending on what happens, we'll just move on from there. So that's where I am on this issue.
Other comments? Ms. Fisher?
Yes, I was just going to say that I too had a lot of concerns when I read the summary, and then when I read the entire report. It did uncover multiple issues and problems at the Dunbar Community School. It is my understanding at this time that those issues have been resolved and other people have been put in charge of the process, that the state has reinstated our ability to offer the GED test, not only district-wide, but at the Dunbar Community School. However, I think that when there is ongoing unethical behavior, we're accountable for that. And I think that in order to work towards restoring trust and building up the reputation of the superintendent and the school board, I think we do need to proceed with the investigation, so I will be supporting it this evening.
Other comments? Mr. Teuber? No? Okay. All in...
Sorry? I was going to make a brief comment. From my understanding, this investigation is totally with regard to Dr. Graham's conduct, so there won't be any other investigating regarding the GED test. I want to say that I have the utmost confidence in Dr. Graham's honesty in that process. I believe sometimes, well, that's all I'm going to say. If people want to speak with me privately, I will share my reasons. I don't have any doubts that at the end of an investigation that she will be found not wanting in any area. I also believe that we need to have transparency. I believe that we need to let the community know and answer their questions. However, over the last couple of weeks, I have had more members of the community requesting that we not go forward with an investigation than I've had members of the community say that they would like investigation. I've had members of community discuss the problems they had with spending the money again. I've had questions like, is this, okay, this is 2 in a year, less than a year. So I am just going to say that if we go through with this investigation, and if Dr. Graham is cleared, can we please go on? That will be twice in a row that she would have been cleared, and we need to move on and go forward beyond that.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Next recommendation, I recommend the school board adopt the measurable performance goals as attached in accordance with the employment contract with Superintendent Dr. Nancy Graham.
Board members, you've heard the attorney's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Teuber, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's 5-0. Dr. Graham, would you please present your recommendation for this evening's public hearing items?
I recommend board approval of the revisions to Policy 2.28 Charter Schools to reflect current forms, practices, and terminology used in the insurance marketplace. The effective date of this revision shall be Wednesday, August 12, 2015.
Board members, we will now recess the regular school board meeting and open the special hearing. As indicated, the public hearing this evening is to consider approval of the revisions to Policy 2.28 Charter Schools. At this time, the public is invited to speak on this one item for 3 minutes. Is there anyone on the right side of the auditorium who wishes to comment? Anyone on the left? Ms. Garcia?
Would just like to hear the whole revision, because sometimes when we change the policy and you just vote on it, we don't get to hear the revision on this. Like, how is the policy going to read, the new one?
Well, it's in the packet, number one, and two, we have already had a briefing on this.
I'm talking about
It's here.
Oh. Okay, because I know a few times you were going to just put new policies in, and well, we didn't know the change.
I don't know what page it is.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, page 113.
It's like 30 pages long.
No, I mean, we're not going to read. Okay. Any other comment? Okay, Dr. Graham, I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen the school board meeting of August 11. Dr. Graham, please restate your recommendation.
I recommend board approval of the revisions to Policy 2.28 Charter Schools to reflect current forms, practices, and terminology used in the insurance marketplace. The effective date of this revision shall be Wednesday, August 12, 2015.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Dozier. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, board member comments, reports. We'll start with Ms. Fisher.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Morgan. Okay. Since Mrs. Morgan asked for Dr. Graham to get us a report regarding the bullying situation, I won't comment on that. I would also ask that you give us some information regarding how the homeschool department is being coordinated at this point, because it seems as though there has been a dramatic change, and I know our homeschool population is increasing. Students must always be our number one priority, and they are. I have a few other comments this evening. I want to thank all of the district staff, the teachers, and the kids who are ready to begin a new school year. We have a lot of promise with our students. They're amazing. And as we heard Sierra talk tonight, we know that they have imaginations and creativity and intelligence, and we want them to have every opportunity to grow, to learn and grow and be successful. I have another commercial for the Lee County Coalition for a Drug-Free Southwest Florida. This past year, they successfully coordinated Drug House Odyssey for 1,500 fifth graders, and for other fifth graders, presented on-site programs for those who could not be accommodated at the Drug House Odyssey due to time constraints. They had the Red Ribbon Week Award recipients, which reflected the very best of our youth in Lee County. They are now poised to begin the Youth to Youth evidence-based program in Lehigh Acres. They have an underage drinking prevention hashtag campaign, which was created by our very own Cape Coral High School Students Against Destructive Decisions, SAD Club, and they're off to a great start. The Coalition's annual meeting will be held tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. at Lee Memorial Hospital. They're in the process of planning for their Run for Prevention, which will be held at Florida Gulf Coast University on October 10th at 8:30 a.m., and we do hope that you will run, walk, or rollerblade with us. Tomorrow, from 9 to 3, at the City Pier, the Fort Myers Teen Advisory Council's United Nations International Youth Day Summit will be taking place. I will be attending in the afternoon, and the students will be talking to government leaders and making presentations regarding all of the work that they have done and thanking the mentors who have helped them to be successful over the past year. And that's sponsored by the Fort Myers City Council. We talked a little bit today about the board's involvement in student hearings, and I'm hoping that we will be having less and less expulsion hearings in the future. I know that our Student Services Department is working along with Florida Gulf Coast University and Dr. Stephen Teskey from Clayton County, Georgia, to look at how we can better improve student behavior, how we can have alternatives to out-of-school suspension, and who would think that keeping kids in school would increase graduation rates. There's a cooperative program that involves the school district, law enforcement, and the judicial system. And it's my understanding, Dr. Graham, that we are going to be having a presentation so that we can possibly become part of a program like that. And the programs are now being adopted in places like Chicago and LA. And one of the things was that they had an amazing amount of data. The presence of weapons on campuses decreased by 70%, 87% decrease in fighting offenses, 86 and 64 decrease in referrals for fighting and disruption of public school, specifically for African American youth, who are the ones who seem to enter into our justice system the most. Aside from that, graduation rates have increased by 20% since the protocol was implemented. And the savings by eliminating court proceedings and incarceration is almost uncountable. So I'm very happy that we are participating in researching and looking at taking part in a program that's going to keep our kids in school and help them to be more successful academically, because after all, we're all about student success. I want to congratulate our Lee County Schools Foundation for getting a 4-star rating, for being one of the most well-run charitable organizations in the country. And thank you, Marshall, for all of your work, and to your staff, please. And that, I think, is all I have this evening.
Mrs. Dozier.
Thank you. I would like to just ditto about Marshall and his staff. Kudos to you and this organization. What a great honor that y'all received, and it was certainly well-deserved. We know that y'all do a good job over there. I have something, board members, that I apologize about bringing it at the last minute. I know that we have asked not to bring things at the last minute. However, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of where we are. And I heard Ms. Michaels say several years ago, it was not several years ago when we met, but instead it was just a year ago when I had a meeting with the union and the Dr. Graham, because this was only your second June here, correct? Wasn't this your second June here?
Mine, yes.
Yes, so it couldn't have been several years ago, it could have only been a year ago. That was because the meeting was actually with you.
I started in June of 13.
Right, so
Okay,
it was
so
shortly
this
after
is
you
the
got
start of
here.
my third year.
It was shortly after Dr. Graham got here, and I brought something to Dr. Graham because I realized that there was going to be a problem this year with paychecks. I had already been hearing teachers talk about paychecks, and it's not because they can't manage their money, and that's been thrown out there, and I really I don't like to hear things like that, but instead, when several payments are taken out of one check, then maybe that is something you did not anticipate. And because this was a shorter school year last year, I guess it wasn't shorter year, but the actual summer last year seemed to be a little shorter, but this year there was a much longer summer, and teachers will not come back to work to get a paycheck on August the 15th like they normally would. As a result of that, and I'm going to tell all of you that I have been fielding phone calls daily and emails from teachers, and I have been, it has really affected me because when our teachers can't pay their bills and when our teachers can't afford childcare, in fact, this morning was the iceberg, because I had someone call me to say that there are teachers that don't know how they're going to pay for their childcare next week to be able to come back to school. That, this is an emergency situation. And a lot of these people, for one reason or another, whether it's through divorce, whether it's their husband divorced them and ran away with all the money out of the bank. The stories that I've heard are absolutely incredible. And BMG, I have nothing to do with this company. I know about a lot of these companies because we hear about them from, FSBA. We also hear about them from other board members in other counties. And I know that in other counties, I don't know how many counties in the state of Florida that use this program. They use this program. It's another alternative for teachers when they can't get loans from credit unions. I am not, if it sounds like an advertisement, believe me, it's not. I'm simply trying to find a solution for all of our teachers. I want teachers to be able to come back to work next week. The interest rates, I understand, are not what you would get at the credit union, would not, and to compare them with loan sharks, I think that is, I think that's a shame. But I did I didn't usurp the union's input because I brought the union in on this. I brought the union in on this from the very beginning. And I said, folks, we're going to have a problem next year. I anticipated a problem, and guess what, folks? The problem hit us right in the face. And if you don't believe me, look at my email, look at my phone calls that I've received from these teachers that are really hurting out there because they are missing this paycheck. And I know here we are on the 11th, but there are some teachers, as I said, if it's not done quickly, then, it's not going to be any good for them. So I want to make a motion this evening, and I will tell you that I went to Dr. Graham back in June, and I said, Dr. Graham, where are we with this? And she said, I don't remember exactly what she said, but, we really hadn't done anything. And I said, well, but, they've got alternatives to go to, credit unions, and, I think Suncoast and another credit union. And I said, well, I am also hearing from teachers that are saying they've already been to the credit unions. The credit unions have turned them down, so I think we need to offer them another alternative. So, I gave it to her, and she said she would see what she could do. In fact, the evening of June the 8th, because I noted it on my, on one of my board meeting packets, we were walking in and Dr. Graham said that she had the contract on her desk and she was going to sign it when she went back in. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because I think all of you need to know it, and it's something that we didn't bring to the table. You didn't have to go out for an RFP. We do have a board policy, and staff even agreed, or didn't agree, but staff, I guess, omitted the fact that It was just an oversight, and Mr. Martin even said, he didn't realize it. In fact, who actually brought it up was Ms. Michaels when she sent the letter to all of us. So the fact that she has sent the letter to us saying that we do have a policy that says 25% of our employees have to sign up for something, payroll deduction before we do it, I want to make a motion. I move that the board make exception or suspend this part of the policy, policy 5.15, by allowing payroll deductions to be eliminated through the BMG money contract without the, Mr. Martin, I'm having problems with this,
Implemented, I believe, is the word rather than eliminated, and
without the implementing for 25%.
without the requirement of 25% of.
By the requirement of,
participating
for
employees.
25% employee participation. Okay, that's it. You have a motion on the floor, Madam Chair.
Yes, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I didn't, could you repeat the motion for me,
Okay.
please? I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Martin, do you have the policy up?
I do.
Okay, would you please read the part of the policy that I'm asking the board to suspend?
Policy provides that payroll deduction shall not be implemented until signed payroll deduction authorization cards are received from at least 25% of all full-time regular employees.
So what I'm asking the board to do is to suspend that part of the policy so we can bring in a company that will give emergency loans up to $5,000 to our teachers. No questions asked. The only thing that they have to do is be an employee, and then they automatically get the loan. Again, I have nothing to do with this. I simply am saying that I'm trying to do a service for our teachers that are financially in trouble right now. So the motion's on the floor.
Yes, discussion. Oh, thank you. Mr. Toiber seconded. Discussion.
I have a question. Is part of the criteria for working with BMG that they will only do it if we have payroll deductions?
We have approached the company twice to ask them if that we're happy to give them the information they want to work with our employees without the payroll deduction, and twice they have declined, saying that's not part of their business plan.
Ms. Dozier.
And I can't tell you why. I cannot give the rationale, but I know as one individual who knows about business, and they're not asking for any type of a credit report on the teachers. They are not asking for any collateral, but instead the only collateral is that they work for the district, and then you would have to have a way to have payment, and so the payment would come through payroll deduction. And, if you knew the story behind this company, and believe me, I just found it out a year ago when we brought them in, and in fact, Wayne Blanton asked me to bring these people in. The whole story behind the company was to do something philanthropic for, people in need. So, and I know that how you feel about voting for something on the night that it's brought to the table, but I also told you that there will be times when there are emergencies, and the way I look at it, this is an emergency, and Dr. Graham, I talked to her today about it, and she just assured me that they had done, I guess, everything they could.
We communicated not only with the company, but also with one of the people that commented to you on how many people were affected, and we have offered to speak with those employees, but we're unable to get information from them thus far. But the company we have talked to twice, and I sent you all a timeline last week of where we were, and the sticky wicket is that they must have that payroll deduction, and board policy doesn't allow it.
So, and the only way that we can have payroll deduction is if we suspend the policy. So that's why I'm bringing the recommendation, because the superintendent was all ready to rock and roll with it. And then when this came up, we had to eliminate it because we would violate board policy. So that's why I'm bringing it forward.
I see you, but I'm going to call on Mr. Martin first.
Okay.
I just needed to give the advice that since there's a motion and a second on the floor with respect to a matter that was not on the agenda, there needs to be an opportunity for public comment at this point.
Also, point of order too. I thought Mr. Martin was going to say it. It also, because it's to alter board policy, it takes a supermajority, so it will take a 4 vote.
Okay.
Public policy.
Is there anyone on the right side of the auditorium who wishes to address the board on this policy? Mr. Valenta and then
Ms. Michaels.
Yeah, Ms. Michaels. Anybody on the left side? And Ms. Giovanelli. Okay.
Mrs. Morgan.
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, didn't see you. Name? Thank you. Mr. Valenta.
I guess I have to start with a question. I realize I can't get a direct answer, but maybe in your comments later you could answer that. Why would we have a policy that requires 25% of your employees to participate in a payroll deduct before any one of them can? It seems like a no-brainer. Anybody should be afforded the opportunity for this solution. It's their payroll. I mean, it's just an opportunity. No one is forced to participate in the BMG, so it's just freedom of choice. I don't really understand. Also, some meetings ago when this first came up, Mrs. Dozier, you recommended a 26-week biweekly payroll. I'd like to see maybe that brought up as part of this motion as well, a solution for here forward, not just the fix. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Michael.
I tried to look back on my FEA calendar because I'm at the school district. It will not let me into my FEA calendar. That meeting happened just after Bob Rushlow got sick and I first became president, which is not last year. So if I had my calendar, I also have all of the information on BMG. I've also done internet research where people are struggling in different states because BMG is given all of the employees' names, and then employees find out later that the company comes after them for $500 or $600 that they say they owe when they've never taken a loan out with them. I object to my name being given to a finance company, whether they do a credit report or not. They can say they don't, but if they do one, it dings my credit, and I don't like that. So it was over 2 years ago, and I will find the information and email it to everybody sitting up here tomorrow.
Debbie Wheeler.
Debbie Wheeler, and I've been in the district for 30 years. I'm a veteran teacher. I've worked with new teachers coming in. I'm concerned about you doing this because when you put out a company like this that's going to charge that much interest, this kids, as I call them, the kids do not understand it. They're going to be in big trouble financially again. And also, one of the other things that you need to understand is if we really are in dire need, and you keep saying we are, I don't know about you, but I've always helped whoever needed help at that point. And if you put this out there and you allow these young teachers to take on a loan that is going to be in the end of the year, they're going to be hurting again. And I'm just wanting you to make sure, because I'm sick and tired of reading in the news press about the teachers not planning. I have been a single parent. I have kept my finances up. I have always taken, I'm no longer a single parent, but I have never been, I've taken on 2 or 3 jobs. Bottom line is, I'm a professional. I need to know what my money is coming out. I need to know what my money is going out. And we need to learn how to budget. And every one of us most of the people as teachers are appalled by the fact that we continuously being told that we don't understand what finances is. My finances are very good, and that was because I made sure of it. And that's what we need to do. We need to teach our new teachers how to do that. And if they need help, we'll take care of them. We don't need some, as I call it, and I'm sorry that you don't agree with it, but it's a loan shark coming in, taking advantage of our young teachers, and I don't want to see it.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Well, I think communication is the issue. I don't think it's a budget issue. I think it's a communication issue. I think if it was communicated properly to all the teachers, they would have been able to budget and figure it out. That's how we work. I'm a realtor. I budget my money. And I have ways, if I don't make money this month, I have budgeted where I can. But if they don't have the information in front of them to know how to budget, that's not going to help them, because it doesn't matter. The paycheck's only X amount. So they weren't told that they were going to miss a paycheck. I think that's communication. So, and I think if somebody needs the money, we need to have opportunity for them to get it. And so they need to read they're adults. I think they're all 18 that are teachers. I sure hope so. And they can read the fine print and figure out what their payment's going to be on that. But it's going to be deducted from their checks, right? So they're not going to it's going to get paid back. So I think opportunity, it's equal opportunity. And I think that they missed that when they weren't told they were going to get this paycheck right now that they're struggling to pay their bills with. And they don't have to take it if they don't want to, right? It's equal opportunity.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, board discussion. Ms. Fisher?
Yes, I was going to ask Mr. Martin 2 questions. When was this policy adopted?
The last time there was action on this policy was the 20th of March 2012. I cannot tell you whether that particular language was acted on at that time.
Okay. Are you aware of what the rationale was to require 25% of the employees to sign? No, okay. I think that if people are in trouble and we've reached out from the district and are willing to talk to them and help them however we can, I think that's a much better opportunity. I would be concerned about young teachers who are struggling that much, then being put into a situation where payroll deduction is going to take, and I think it said something like $267 out of their paycheck. They'll be in more trouble, and they are asking for collateral. Their collateral is that payroll deduction, and that doesn't sound very philanthropic to me, but I would not support changing the policy at this point.
Ms. LaRiviere?
I would appreciate some of the teachers calling me and letting me know, because I can put them in contact with organizations that will assist them with the money at no interest, and many times they don't even have to pay it back. So if some of people would feel free to direct them my way, and I will let them know about a couple of places that they can go and possibly get money with no interest.
Other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Let's have the motion again.
I move that the board make exception to policy 5.15 by allowing payroll deductions to be implemented through BMG money contract without the requirement for 25% employee participation.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Oh, no. I said the wrong thing.
Okay, let's try this again. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
Aye.
sign?
Aye.
Okay, motion fails, 2-3. Mrs. Dozier, do you have other comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I would like to welcome back, because we will not have another meeting before the teachers come back, all the teachers, administrators, support staff, custodians, bus drivers, lunch room people, paras, everyone that's to the district. I would like to welcome them back. In fact, I know there was a leadership meeting. I regret that I wasn't there. I didn't know anything about it, or I would have been there to welcome all the leadership. I hope that y'all had a very productive several days. I also would like, this is my time of year to give a commercial, and it is, I would like for the community to be aware that the school is opening, and there are reduced speeds. I'm doing this for your benefit as well as for the students. More for the students, but I don't want you to get tickets, because the tickets in school zones are very, very expensive. So please, when you're around a school, please slow down, because the speed is reduced during school time. I'd also like to welcome all of our students back. I look forward to seeing their smiling faces during the school year, and I hope that every one of them have a wonderful, successful school year. Thank you.
Mr. Teuber? Ms. LaRiviere?
No, none at this time.
Okay, and I have none. Mr. Martin?
No comments, thank you.
Dr. Graham?
A few things. I wanted to let the board know that the Heart Association has contacted us, that for the 5th consecutive year, we're a fit-friendly organization. It's the 3rd year that we're at the gold level. I'll send you a copy of that memo so you can see it, but part of what got us that was our wellness initiatives with employees, including the CHIP program and the opportunity that they have to take the Food for Life classes about eating. I also would like to congratulate 2 of our principals who, in addition to being strong principals, Robert Butts at Mariner High was invited to be the keynote for the American Youth Congress this summer in North Carolina, and his topic was about decision-making. So he talked to a lot of students during that time. I think he got to speak 2 or 3 times while he was there. And then Gateway Elementary Principal Chris Subner is serving on the Suncoast Schools Credit Union Board, and has just been given that opportunity, and they, as you know, the credit union is very supportive of our school district through the foundation, and so she's a part, it's the foundation that she's a part of as they look to make decisions on how to help us, so we appreciate her service there. Also, I want to thank Ms. Fisher, Ms. LaRiviere, who met me yesterday, one at Mariner and one at Riverdale. I went to Fort Myers High and Riverdale High and Mariner High yesterday to say welcome back to all the bus drivers. And they are quite a group to behold. There were about 400 in each venue. We can't get them all in one place at one time. And the training they have to go through, I really didn't understand. They have to know everything from diabetes to sleep deprivation to bloodborne pathogens. There's a lot they have to know to be able to cart our most precious cargo around, and so I did promise them that I told them that when I speak to community groups, I tell them how many bus routes we have and how many buses and how many drivers. There are about 1,200 drivers, and that I remind people there's a good chance they're going to be stopped by a bus at some point on the road, and if they could just think positive thoughts or say a prayer for the driver and or the children while they're sitting there, that would be a really kind thing to do. And they were happy to know that message is being shared. So thank you to that. It's a group of unsung heroes. They do what they have to do every day. And I challenge them to say every child's name every day, because there's research out there that says it is possible that a child can go through the whole day without anybody saying his name. And for some of them, that bus driver is their person, because it's the first one they see and the last one. So we're grateful to our bus drivers. And it is the start of the school year, so there are lots of people we're grateful for right now. I do want to tell everyone, because it was alluded to a couple of times, that we're in trouble with our ability to offer the GED at Dunbar Community School. That is not the case. There was a temporary suspension so that DOE could do its own look at what goes on with the testing there, and they, based on what they found, they have cleared Dunbar Community School to be a location for GE testing, and the changes that have already been put in place process-wise there will be to the benefit of all that use that facility to take the test. And also, I said this at the briefing, I'm going to say it again. There are 2 sites right now on Facebook. I've never done Facebook. I don't do Facebook now. But there are 2 sites that, besides our site, which is the Lee County Schools, there are 2 sites that are using our logo. And our logo is not copyrighted, and so we would like people to not use it unless they have our permission. And we will work to see if we can get to the source of those sites. But one is called the School District of Lee County Fact Check. And the information on there is not coming from the district. And so I just want the board to be aware of that. And also I want the community to be aware that our site is available through our website, through our app. It's called Lee County Schools. This is called the School District of Lee County Fact Check. And there is an individual or individuals who have created some sort of fan page there. And so I just want people to be aware. If they're not sure, they can either call our communications office or they can go through our website or our app to get to our Facebook page. Also, there's another that's using our logo under the name of Ryan Truther. That is also not a site that is from the district. So I think it's important for people to know if they're looking at information there, it's not coming from us. And as several of you have mentioned, it is the start of the school year. We're excited. The first group of teachers, I will tell you, a lot of teachers have worked all summer, but the first group of teachers returns tomorrow because the teachers of our Title I schools go back early. And so they will begin some in-service and training tomorrow as we begin to prepare for the year, and then the rest will join them next Monday, and the students will be back on the 24th. We are anticipating a positive year. We're very excited. We have if you look at Twitter or if you go to our website, you will see that we've been doing a series on the first day of school with the idea that everybody has a first day. It's the first day for staff, it's the first day for parents, it's the first day for kids. And if you have a minute to read some of the comments of the children about what they're most excited about, what they're a little scared about, I think you could change the faces and names and the ages, and things don't really change much. So we are excited to welcome them all back pre-K to 12, and we look forward to the 2015-16 school year. It remains a privilege to serve this district, and thank you for your work on the goals that we will pursue together.
Thank you. The next scheduled meetings of the board are on Tuesday, August 25th, a workshop at 2 p.m. and a school board action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Teuber, seconded by Ms. LaRiviere. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.